Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as I do an early March seedling tour. So let's go. Today is March 1st, and I thought it would be a great way to start the month off by just giving you a tour of how my seedlings are looking and also just an overall tour of my grow room. Once we begin the tour, not only will you see a close-up of the different seedlings, but you'll also see the name of the plant, the date that the seeds were sown, the age that the seedlings are as of today, and a picture of what the plant will look like once it's bigger. Based on my zip code, my average last frost date is somewhere around May 15th. So I still have quite a while before I can even think about putting many of my plants outside. And my average last frost date might be different than yours. So it's a good thing to keep that in mind as you're watching my seedling tour and just looking at the size of the plants. And down in the description of this video, I'm going to put links to other videos that I've made that might be helpful for you and be related to this particular video. So there will be links on the grow light systems that are in this room, DIY seed starting mix, where I show you my process for making my own seed starting mix, as well as a DIY video for how to make your own potting mix, and then a playlist of a seed starting video. Also, how I organize my seeds and anything else that I can think of that might be helpful for you. I still have a lot of seeds to start. So what I'm doing right now is I'm constantly moving plants around based on their height. So on the very top shelves, I have plants that are taller that don't need as much light, but they still need light, and those are going on the top shelf. And then from shelf to shelf, I'm just moving things around based on the height of the plants so that they're all getting a similar amount of light. And what that means is I'm also moving my grow lights up and down based on the height of the plants. And my grow lights are on chains. And so it's very easy for me to just unhook a chain and move the light up and down based on the needs that I have at that time. I like to mass sow my seeds in restaurant to go containers. And as the seedlings emerge, I like to prick them out and move them up into 6-packs. And then as those plants get bigger, I like to bump them up into 3-inch pots. It's a very tedious process, but it works for me. And I just wanted to share that information with you so that you keep that in mind as we're doing this seedling tour. So my grow light systems are basically 5-tier shelving units that I got from a big box store. And then connected onto them are LED shop lights. The shop lights come on at 5 a.m. and they go off at 9 p.m. and they're hooked up to timers. I also keep an oscillating fan in this room, and it's not on a timer. It's just something that I turn on when I'm not working on seedlings, and I leave it on. It's very good for the plants. It creates air movement in the room. It makes my plants stronger. It also dries off the tops of the surfaces of the seedlings or the plants, which is actually good for the plants. I only water my plants as needed. I really don't have a set schedule of when I water my plants. In a perfect world, I'd love to be able to do that, but I realize that different plants have different watering needs. The bigger plants can get away with being watered maybe once a week, but the really small plants need to be watered a lot more frequently. So every day I make it a point to just check on my seedlings and give them the water that they need if they need the water. And when it comes to fertilizing, I only fertilize the plants that have 1 to 2 sets of true leaves on them. If they only have their initial set of leaves, which are called the cotyledons, I give them water, but I don't give the plants any fertilizer at that time. And I like to dilute Miracle-Gro in my water. I do it at a half a strength, and you can use whatever fertilizer works for you. When it comes to watering, I like to bottom water. That is very important. If you water small little seedlings from the top, it causes a lot of different issues. So you want to avoid that at all costs. And if you have any questions at all about what you're seeing in this video, please drop a comment below. Ask any questions. I do check all the comments. I do my best to reply back to them in a timely fashion. And I'd love to answer any questions or comments that you have. Okay, the moment you've been waiting for. Let's begin this tour. So keep in mind, again, I'm going to be doing the tour starting with one row at a time, and then I'll take you in for a closer look. So these plants are on the top shelf, so they still need light, but they don't need light right on top of them. We have geraniums up here. We also have a bunch of basil. And then over here are some spinach. So now let's take you in for a closer look. Many of these are geraniums that I overwintered, dormant, bare root in my basement. And then we brought them upstairs and started giving them some water and some light. And at this point, I feel like they're looking great, but they do need some maintenance work. So for example, with this geranium here, what I could do is come in here and just cut this part off right there. With this one here, I could come in here and cut this off right here. I do see that it's sending off a little bit of growth, which is nice at the base. I could come in and cut this piece off right here. And for some of the taller pieces that are just kind of off on their own, optimally what I'd like to do is I would like to root those. So I would cut it to keep this plant a little bit on the compact side, but come in and cut it right here. And I'd like to root this piece right here. With this one here, again, you can see there's a lot of nice growth at the base. So I'd like to come in and cut off any pieces that don't look good. But right up here, there's another piece that I could come in and I could try to cut that off and root that. And with this one here, I could maybe come in here or here, leave the lower part, but try to root the top parts. This little guy here is one that I started from seed. I didn't intend to start any geraniums from seed this year, but since I collected a few seeds from my geranium plants last year, I figured I might as well sow them. So this small little guy is one that I started from seed, and here's another one that I started from seed. I didn't start a lot from seed, so I'm happy with the few that did germinate. So overall, I'm very pleased with how the geraniums are looking. They do need a little bit of maintenance. I realize that, but for right now, I'm very pleased with the progress that I have on my geraniums. I have two different varieties of basil here that are looking great. Right in here, I'm planning to cut right there. You can see that there's some new growth trying to push out. And that's a good thing. You want your basil plants to do that, to make them bushier and make more leaves. And I'm planning on using my basil with some fresh mozzarella, as well as some cherry tomatoes with a little bit of balsamic vinegar drizzled on top. That's going to be so delicious. And with this basil here, I could come down here and I could cut as low as there because I can see there's, again, new growth trying to push out. And that way, this particular basil plant is not so tall and leggy. And then here, I just have a different variety of basil that's looking very good. Here, I have some beautiful spinach plants. This happens often with spinach, where the lower leaves maybe don't look so good. I'm not concerned about that at all. You can see that they have a nice green, lush color to them. And there's a close-up look of one of the plants. And spinach is cold hardy. These will be one of the many plants that I will be bringing out very soon so I can start hardening them off. And they're going to go on my rolling cart. Over here are some broccoli plants. There are a ton. I have some plants that were mass sown in different containers. And then I have some ranunculus that are remaining, and I'm waiting to see if any of those are going to sprout. When it comes to trays of plants that I have multiple trays of, I'm only going to show you one tray because it becomes very repetitive. You can see that this broccoli looks very good, and in this cell in particular, I can see that there are two here. I'll probably just end up cutting the small, shorter one. You always want to just keep one in each of the cells. I had originally multi-sowed these seeds and pricked them out and put them into 6-packs, but obviously there were two in this one here. It happens, and that's fine. What happens a lot of times is the seedlings in the center are shorter, and the ones that are more on the outskirts here tend to be tall and leggy because they're reaching in for the light. Even though I have the grow lights down, maybe I have them down a little too much. And that's fine. What will end up happening with these leggier seedlings, I can do one of two things. I can pot them up into bigger pots, or I can just prick these out and repot them into a small 6-pack like this, into a different 6-pack. And I'll just make sure when I plant this in another 6-pack that I just plant it deeper. It's okay to do that with many plants. They actually prefer that you plant them deeper. Also worth mentioning, right here, these are the cotyledons, and then right here, this is the first set of true leaves. So at this point, these are being fertilized. And I can see that the roots are coming out from the bottom here, but I'm planning to plant these out very soon and also sell them as part of my backyard plant nursery. So I'm not planning to pot these up into 3-inch pots. Here are some tuberous begonias that were planted quite a while ago. And here's a close-up look at these begonia plants. Some of my begonia plants are much bigger. These ones are definitely on the smaller side. Here are some more wax begonias. I have to tell you, when you pot up plants, the sooner you pot them up, the faster they're going to grow. And later on, I'll be showing you these same plants that have been potted up a while ago and how much bigger they are. But it comes down to time. When I get to it, I will keep working on this project of pricking these out and potting them up. And if I don't get to it with some plants, it's okay because I already have so many of these plants. But they're still alive for now, and I'm still bottom watering them. And the only reason I'm keeping this clear plastic wrap on top of this here is these particular seedlings are tiny, and I don't want the soil to keep drying out on me. It will dry out very quickly. It's a seed starting mix. So for right now, I just keep this on just so that the soil doesn't dry out as quickly, and it doesn't seem to be harming these particular seedlings. Can you tell I love begonias, either tuberous or wax begonias? And you can see there's life under there. I just wanted to show you next to this dime how tiny those little seedlings are. I have started pricking out these seedlings. I just haven't gotten to doing all of them. And a lot of times in the morning when I'm having my coffee and I'm watching videos, that's a great time for me to tackle projects like this. So I'll be coming back to this tray, but I have started pricking out some of the seedlings from this tray. I had made a video showing the process for pre-sprouting my ranunculus corms. I have pulled out a ton of corms out of this tray, but there are still some in here. I am still trying to keep this watered. You can see it looks a little wetter here and a little drier there. But if you dig down, it is still moist in the bottom here. And some of these corms don't look good. Some of them might have just not survived, or I don't think they rotted because of overwatering. I have so many corms that the probability is high that some of them might never sprout. But I'm going to keep waiting, and I'm going to keep checking these every so often to see if they've sprouted. And if whatever's remaining in here is not going to sprout, I'm fine with that too. I'll give it probably another week or so. Over here are brassica plants. So we either have cabbage or broccoli. And I'm noticing that I do need to lift the lights because some of the plants are getting taller. And the ones on the ends are stretching a little bit, so I will lift them to make them happy. Here's a beautiful tray of cabbage. Aren't they cute? Who doesn't love a good pepper plant? Well, you can clearly tell I love peppers, but I also don't need that many peppers. And when I show you a close-up, I won't be showing you every single pepper here. Instead, what I'll do is I'll just put up on the screen the different varieties of peppers that I'm growing, because I started all my pepper plants on the same date. Peppers are still pretty small, and that's okay because they still have a long time to go before I bring them outside. And there's a close-up of a 6-pack of peppers. I'm still not fertilizing these plants because all we have right now are just the cotyledon leaves. If you notice this happening where you have a plant that's growing and then you have basically the seed still connected to the leaves, a lot of times I like to leave it alone because the seed will fall off on its own. But after some time has passed and it's not helping itself and the seed is still connected to the leaf, what I like to do is I lick my fingers and then I just rub. And voila, the seed comes off. And it's the weirdest thing, but I had read about that a long time ago. And I'll put some more information on the screen regarding that process. I don't do it a lot, but if it's bugging me too much, I can just help it along. And there you go. I do see there's a few more here. I could be doing that too, but I'll do that on a different day. There will be a time when I need to use the bottom shelf for putting some plants down here. That day hasn't come yet. So what's going on here is these are just trays that had plants that came up. I've pricked out the plants and I'm waiting to see. I might just give it a week max if anything's going to sprout. I'm not concerned if there's no light to these plants. I've already taken so many plants out of these trays. So this is kind of their last chance to show me what they got. And then if I notice there's no more plants that are emerging within the next week, then I can empty these trays out. Over here are a bunch of cauliflower. Again, they're a nice short size. I'm keeping the lights just barely above them. I don't want them to get leggy. And the key to running the fan is you want the stalk of your plants to keep getting stronger and bulkier. If you don't run a fan, you're going to end up with very spindly, skinny seedlings. So I will be running that fan shortly today. I can tell when I picked up this tray that this tray of seedlings needs water because the tray seems very light. And also I'm looking at the color of the soil and it is a light brown color. But my biggest indicator is by picking up this tray. These are cauliflower and they're all looking very good. This is my first year growing anemones and I'm excited to give them a try. I recently made a short showing you my process for pre-sprouting and growing the anemones. I didn't make a video because I don't have a lot of experience with them, but you can see that they did sprout and there are a few that I'm waiting for them to sprout. Some more plants that are under cover. And these are just some ranunculus corms that I recently potted up. I'll be showing you later in this video some better looking ranunculus corms because they sprouted first, much before these did. Don't let the dry soil fool you. I just watered all these, and when I pick up this tray, I can assure you this is very heavy. So everything is well watered here. The key with anemones as well as ranunculus is you don't want to water too much. Actually, that's probably key with many of the plants that I'm growing indoors under these grow lights. So I give it a nice good drink of water, and then I wait until it feels light and it needs water, and then I water it again. You don't want to give it too much water. You don't want your plants to rot. And what I did was after everything sprouted, I moved them right up into these 3-inch pots. And these are just 3-inch pots that I got locally for free, so it works. I just am so excited about growing anemones this year. Look how cute that is. When it comes to both anemones as well as ranunculus, they do not overwinter in my climate. So I need to lift the corms each year and then plant them out again in the springtime. And we have more begonias. Here is my dime for reference, just so you can see the size. I've already pricked out a bunch of these begonias. This is what's remaining. And I'm not too worried when you see algae growth, that's not harmful to the plant. I'm okay with that. The plants are still fine and they're still healthy. We have some more begonias. And notice I had used this plastic wrap when I had sown some other plants. But I know right now we have these type of begonias in here. My gosh, look how small they are. I had sown some lettuce in this container before, and now I have more wax begonias in here. Although, what is that? You know, sometimes the lettuce just sprouts when it wants to sprout. Clearly, I have a couple of leggy lettuce in here that I need to prick out of here. And then I have a whole bunch of wax begonias. The reason why you can't really see anything here, except for a couple of stray plants towards the front, is that most of the plants in here are wax begonias or tuberous begonias. Although I do have some eggplant here, but otherwise, this is pretty much the land of begonias. Some are bigger than others. Here are the eggplant that you just saw. I have to say, out of all the plants that I've ever grown, annuals or perennials from seed, begonias are something I'm very proud of. I find that they're not the easiest plants to grow, but you can see that I do have, generally speaking, good luck with them. And of course, I'm going to show you the biggest ones that I have here. Look how healthy and nice they look. And even though I don't see a lot of roots coming from the bottom, I absolutely really should be potting these up into 3-inch containers. So this week, that's going to be one of my goals. And by the way, this tells you a lot when it comes to potting up. I showed you earlier little seedlings that have not been pricked out yet, and they're really tiny. Had I pricked all those seedlings out on the same day that I pricked these guys out, that's how big all my seedlings would be. They would be this big. But the reality is there's only so much time to prick out little seedlings, and I'm very happy with the amount of plants that I have been able to prick out so far. And yes, this poor guy needs some water. Look at all those ranunculus. I have not bought ranunculus corms in probably 3 years. I only bought them once, probably from a big box store, and then I've just been dividing the corms. I had a lot of luck with my ranunculus last year. I put them in raised beds and they were beautiful. This year, I think I'm going to be putting them in different pots and containers to keep on my porches. Tend to divide a lot of my perennials in my yard, so when it came to these corms, I know I had a fun time dividing, but there's something to be said with not over dividing plants. But if I hadn't over divided, I wouldn't have had so many ranunculus corms. It's another way to look at it. And with my research and from my experience last year, even when you over divide your corms, many times you're still going to get a lot of them to bloom. It's not like only this one will bloom. So I'm fine with that. I feel like it was just yesterday that we planted our vinca, but I have started pricking them out. We have a few different types of begonia here, and then some impatiens. I have just barely started the process of pricking out my vinca plants. Look how teeny tiny they are. It's amazing how beautiful and how big they get from such a small little plant. Now, even though these do appear to be dry when I lift them, they still seem pretty wet. I have to tell you, when it comes to my wax and tuberous begonia seedlings, I am still potting them up into seed starting mix. And the reason is because the plants are just so tiny. I don't want to just put them right into potting mix. I want them to create a good root system. So I am potting them up from the mass sown restaurant to go containers into 6 packs with seed starting mix in them. I just feel that that retains the water better. So that's my process for that. This is my first year growing tuberous begonias from seed. And these begonias, be it the tuberous or the wax that you're seeing in this video, were seeds that I collected myself. But I just think they look so great. I'm very excited for it being my first year doing that. And the big test will be to see how they look, how they bloom, but then will they produce a tuber for me at the end of the season? We're going to find that out together. So on this side here, these are a lot of the tuberous begonias, and then over here are more of the wax begonias. I'm on a shade in my yard, and one of the biggest plants that I regretted not growing enough of last year from seed were my beacon impatiens. Like many of my plants, I collect my own seeds, and it's always a surprise on what they're going to look like when it comes to the plants. But when it comes to impatiens, it's pretty predictable. I mean, the colors vary a little bit, but it's either going to be a pink or some sort of red or some sort of white. And I'm okay with that variety. But look at all the seedlings that I was able to prick out so far. Again, I had mass sown the seeds in a restaurant to go container. The seeds germinated, I pricked them out, and I started moving them into 6 packs. In case you're wondering, how is there such great germination? That's why. And the great thing is, if I find that a seedling dies along the way, I have plenty more that are still in trays. I can prick them out and replace them. But so far, they've been holding their own. They're doing really well. I love impatiens in my window boxes and my hanging baskets in different container pots. And my goal for this year is to also plant them out in the landscape because I do have a lot of shade in my yard. And my husband and I have been putting drip irrigation down in the landscape. So these impatiens will get plenty of water. So between the impatiens as well as all the different wax begonias that are going to be planted, I think it's going to look really pretty this year. Look how tiny and cute they are. They're still only getting water because we only have the cotyledons coming up right now. So in a tray like this, there are 72 plants, and I have 5.5 trays filled so far with just impatiens. I am so super excited. I had originally mass sown my onion seeds into restaurant to-go containers, but then I potted them up and they're in 3-inch pots, and I put 9 plants in each one. And they are all looking very good, very healthy. And over here are some lettuce. I've been making some nice salads with this lettuce. And there are some other plants towards the back there. I'll show you them. There are some peppers and tomato plant, but I'll bring them down for a closer look. And all of these plants are up on the top shelf because they are bigger, taller plants and they don't need as much light at this point. So that's why they are on the top shelves at this point in their life. I continue to bottom water even the biggest plants that I have here. And you can see the onions are looking nice and healthy. I don't need this many onions. I have full sun in my yard, but I don't have a ton of full sun. And I don't have a huge vegetable garden. I will be doing a lot of vegetable gardening in pots this year, but I do plan on selling a lot of these as part of my backyard plant nursery. What I found last year was when people came to buy plants from me, because I pretty much was only selling perennial plants, people were looking at my other plants, my flowers, my vegetable plants that I'd started from seed, and they were wanting to buy them. So this year I will definitely be offering a lot more vegetable plants as part of my backyard plant nursery. I tell you, there is nothing like a fresh salad. And every night my husband and I have a nice salad with our dinner. And you can see there are a lot of different varieties here. And I'm cutting these using the cut and come again method. And what that means is cutting the bigger leaves that are on the outside here, but then leaving the center leaves. And what happens is the plant just keeps growing from the center. And so if you keep cutting the plant on the outside, you're going to cut and it's going to come again. It's a beautiful thing. This was a lettuce mix, so I'm just showing you close up all the different kinds of lettuce that are in this lettuce mix. When we go to a restaurant, I almost feel guilty ordering a salad now. Lettuce is absolutely something that I plan on growing year-round indoors under my LED shop lights. Since I've already invested the money into my shop lights, I just love a fresh salad, and I'm a lazy gardener when it comes to lettuce. I don't want to go outside. I don't want to pick the lettuce, have to wash it. I just want to grow it inside and just keep enjoying it while it's inside. This tray is a hodgepodge of things. There is lettuce here. I've really been cutting hard on that lettuce. Here's one cucumber plant that I grew from seed. It's really slow. It's not doing great, but it's still alive. And it's a dwarf variety that I was hoping to grow indoors. It was an experiment, but I'm still not giving up hope on that poor little guy. Here are some dwarf variety peppers that I started. My goal for my dwarf variety cucumber and peppers, as well as dwarf tomatoes, is to just grow them indoors. I don't want them to be outdoor plants. So you can see I have 3 of the pepper plants. Over here are 2 of the dwarf variety tomato plants. This one sprouted later, so it's smaller. And this tomato plant is begging to be potted up. It looks great, and I'm noticing that there are some blossoms on it, which is very exciting. I grew a dwarf variety of tomato last year. It was called Orange Hat. This is a different variety, but I ended up with so many tomatoes indoors. It was wonderful. And then just some more onions over here. Here are some more plants that are on the top shelf. And by the way, when I say top shelf, this is the top of my grow light system. And last year, I realized that I was running out of room with plants. And I had all these taller plants. I didn't know what to do with them. And so I had my husband help me, and we basically extended the grow light system. And I have a video, I'll link it below, that shows how to utilize that top shelf. And we used some PVC pipes that we already had in the house, and he cut them. He basically retrofitted, and we just bought those shop lights for cheap. They're like $20 each. But yeah, I am so excited about utilizing the space on the top shelf here. Okay, I digress. We have Swiss chard, a ton of that. And I'll be offering all of these plants up here as part of my backyard plant nursery because I need some, but I don't need them all. And check out the Brussels sprouts. It's like a sea of Brussels sprouts. The Swiss chard just looks so lovely. And they're nice and big. They're a perfect size to be planting out in the garden. And I love this one here. I just think it's very pretty as well. This will be my first year growing Brussels sprouts, and I am up for the challenge. When it comes to a lot of the brassicas, be it the cauliflower or the broccoli or the Brussels sprouts, I am absolutely going to have to put some sort of covering on them because I don't want them to be attacked by insects and bugs. So that will be a big goal of mine for this year is to keep these alive. But I just think they just look beautiful. They're at a good size, and that's just a close-up of each of these plants. And these are 3-inch pots that they're in. This is my Gardener Supply grow light system that my mother-in-law bought me a number of years ago. And check it out. Mr. Budget Gardener retrofitted it just to use the top shelf, which is very cool. So I have all my pansies. I collected the seeds of my pansies last year, and they're looking good. I have a couple of cilantro that I had started, and those look really nice. Speaking of which, I need to have Mexican food soon because that tastes so good on Mexican food like tacos. Some more pansies. And over here are some wire vine, or I'm pretty sure they're wire vine. I'll take you in for a closer look, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. When it comes to pansies, it's iffy whether or not they're going to overwinter here where I live. So I always like to just be safe and start some from seed. I did have some that overwintered last year, so fingers crossed on those. But I do have a couple of different varieties of pansies that I planted. And I collected the seeds, so it's going to be a mix of some yellow, some purple, and some blue colors. And here's a close-up on those. Along with the brassicas, the pansies will be going out very soon on my rolling cart. So I'm going to be hardening those off. This is one of the 3 cilantro plants that I'm just growing for indoor purposes so I can enjoy. There's something to be said about fresh lettuce, fresh tomatoes hopefully soon, fresh cilantro and fresh basil growing inside when it's still winter and cold outside. Yum. Okay, all my gardening friends, I had made a short asking for help, and my sister-in-law said wire vine, and I think she's right, but if anyone else has guesses on what this might be, please let me know. You can see that it's definitely vining, and I got cuttings of it last year, and so far I have 9 plants. I still need to come in, or I still want to come in, and I want to cut some more. And you can see it's actually trying to root itself. But I just think this would look so pretty in my window boxes or container pots. And it's free. So anyway, what do you think? What kind of plant is that? I'll do a close-up. Sorry, my hands are shaking. It just happens. I love it. It's like a nice glossy leaf. And then you have like this lime green color. So pretty. We are currently looking at plants that are on my Gardener Supply grow light system. And you can see I have a heat mat here. And I typically do take plants off of the heat mat as soon as they germinate. I just haven't gotten around to it, and it's okay when it comes to a few of them, like this one here. Now, this is Impatiens, and if you look carefully, you can see that, over in this corner, there are a whole bunch that are a bigger size, but then there's a whole bunch like pushing out growth. So I don't know. I typically like to take plants off of the heat mat if like all of them were about this big. So I'm going to wait maybe another day. Now the key is this is seed starting mix and it dries out very quickly. So I am bottom watering it just to make sure it doesn't dry out because these trays do have holes in them. This is sweet alyssum. You can see a little bit of growth in there. This was an old packet of seeds. It was like a pastel mix. I have never done a 1 seed challenge, and I would be lying if I said that this will be my plant for the 1 seed challenge. But you can see there are probably what, maybe 6, 7 plants in there. I don't anticipate many more growing. Who knows how many will survive? My goal is to grow these on. I want them to bloom. I want to see what color they are. It says pastel mix, so they might be a really pretty pink or a light purple. I don't know. But I want to grow them on and collect the seeds. So then next year I can have a whole bunch more of them. So that will be my seed challenge for myself. I didn't make a video showing lavender because it's such a tricky plant to grow from seed. I have a whole process that I tried, and in here are seeds that I planted. Now, keep in mind they are older seeds, and only one came up. I already pricked it out, and I'm still keeping it on the heat mat. I am going to give it a long time. I want to see if they germinate. But I basically had started seeds in the fridge, and if this method has worked and I end up with great germination, I will do a follow-up video on that. So if we move this way, you will see that these are a bunch of lavender seeds as well as delphinium. Those are two plants that I've heard, and my experience has been, are very tricky to grow from seed. And if you look carefully, I need to work on this. I do have germination of lavender, and it says old variety, it's an old seed. I need to come in here, I need to prick these out. This will be my project for tonight. And again, I'm not going to video any of this yet. I'll show it in a video update if I have very good success with these plants growing. I do have some lavender that's germinated, absolutely needs to come out and be potted up. It's hard to tell, but I know that there's germination in each of these. So there's lavender in there, and you can see there's lavender in there. You can see the dates that I sowed the seeds, what the year was on the seeds, but they're still germinating. They just absolutely have to come out, and they need to be potted up into 6-packs. Over here, it shows the date that I put these seeds in the refrigerator. And over here, my plan was I was going to take some of the seeds out after 2 weeks and then some of the seeds out after 3 weeks. But I ended up taking all the seeds out after 2 weeks. They are still in Ziploc baggies. There is paper towel in here that was pre-moistened with the seeds that were scattered on the paper towels. So far I'm pretty happy with it. I just need to get the plants out of the bag. And I did a similar process with my delphinium. I put them in the fridge on February 8th, and then I basically pulled them out after, I think it was 14 days. But they, the key is you're supposed to pot them up as soon as you see the little white tail, and they are already sprouting. I've already potted up some, by the way. This will be my project for tonight, but I am happy that there is life and they just need to get moved out of those bags. Over here are more delphiniums, and I basically was experimenting with keeping them in the bags and then putting some in soil. And so far, the one that's in soil, only one sprouted. So a lot of experimenting going on here with two plants that are typically hard to grow from seed. These are just 3 different sowings of the trailing lobelia, the annual lobelia that I recently did. And then you can see I have many trays of plants that basically have come up. I'm still bottom watering, but I'm slowly making my way with pricking them out. We have a lot more, isn't that crazy? A lot more impatiens. We have a lot more vinca. So far I've only tackled the white ones, but there are a bunch of pink ones. A brassica, that's cauliflower, and then 2 trays of sweet alyssum. Look how beautiful that amaryllis is. This is, I think, the 3rd year I've owned these amaryllis, and that's a little baby bulblet that came off of one of the other amaryllis that are here. And 2 of the amaryllis already bloomed. In fact, this one here, I need to cut back the stalk. And what you do with your amaryllis is you keep them inside, especially here where it's still too cold, and it's a house plant. And then what I'm going to do is bring them outside, and I can either keep them in pots or I can plant them out in the landscape. I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet. I'm thinking they're going to get planted out in the landscape, but it's a whole process, and you basically keep them out there all summer long. They get water, they get sun, and then you bring them back in. You put them in for dormancy for, I made a whole video on this whole process, but for a period of time. Pull them out of dormancy, and you just do the whole process all over again. Anyway, I just wanted to show you. Look how pretty that is. This is just a behind the scenes look at, basically, this is right off of my kitchen. This is kind of a little eat-in kitchen area. You can see over here I have the fan just tucked away to the side, but then it does come out so that I can give some air movement to my plants. And those are all the tall plants that are up on the top of the grow light systems. And as we move this way, you can see the amaryllis that are in the window, that south-facing window there. And then there is the super nice grow light system that my mother-in-law bought me years ago, and it's from Gardener Supply. And I have changed out the bulbs. They were originally fluorescent, and this year I just changed out the bulbs, so they're now LED. And even though this is raised, I will be lowering that. I just did it for the video. And you can see how we also retrofitted the top of the Gardener Supply grow light system and added one more tier for tall plants. I hope you enjoyed this tour. I really enjoy sharing my process with you. And I'm going to continue making videos just showing you different seeds that I'm starting. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, please drop them below. I hope you're enjoying your gardens, and until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.